This is Gerald Johan van Waas. From this video onwards, I will show you, listeners and watchers of this video channel, a different approach towards letters, letter meanings, and so on. This video channel is about the meaningful letter combinations that show you from the start how each letter has a position in time and space, that also shows you what the letters are combining and what kind of word expressions we will receive in that way. So we are using the letters with a certain order that has an order of its own that makes it work. This first video will combine the idea of not just how the theory looks like, so I will also show you again how this works, how this is effective from the theory, but I'll also show you the approaches from languages like English and other European, Western European languages, and I will combine them with Chinese letters from this Chinese and script, with the Chinese script and words, and sometimes some Japanese approaches as well. The Japanese is also based with the script upon the Chinese script. So I will combine both visions because it's interesting. You see these approaches, and actually from the letters positions alone, it uses the same universal ideas, while it has a completely different approach also that is very dependent on context. And the sounds alone, which are very apparent in the Western languages, for instance, they are more used to have an idea of context, but they are not the context, while in the Western language they are really describing the objects alone, and they are not often used in a grammatical sense, in the sense of, okay, just go to that direction more or less and interpret it from other ideas to see what the words are. They are very straightforward in the Western languages. It's different in the Eastern languages because it's also involved in a balance how you have to behave towards that balance and so on, which is not there in the Western, from the Western point of view, and that makes it interesting. And I will start very much from the basics. So the basics for the Western languages is based upon the Roman script, and we use the letter A or A as a foundation. We also say we start from what we think, so from I. It has the sound of A in the beginning, but it has the letter I, and that's the second letter of importance also in the system. And I will explain you where the letter A is, or A, where the letter I is, and where the idea of I comes from. And I will compare this to the Chinese starting point of counting, the number 1, which is I. Let's have a look. So the basics of our understanding of all the letters in what we see in the world is based upon what you can see here, upon 3 different kinds of orientations, and all the letters are given an order in these regions: a region of space, a region of time orientation, and a region of context orientation. You can see here that first 3 letters, the A, the T and the K. The A is the range of notion that we see. Okay, this is our starting point. It's more or less in this range that I'm going to find my definition. The T defines it by measurement, and the K puts the limits to the starting point in this case. So all our understanding in the basics of our language with the Roman letters is, and with the letter A as the first letter, is based upon estimation of an objective goal to make something measurable, as physical as possible, and as clear as possible to work with. That's the letter A. And based upon how we can use this foundation, there is an underlying rhythm in it. So we have a stable position in space around the letter A. We try to define it from there in our estimations to make that as a starting point, the 0 point, in which we try to define the measurements, the kind of measurements that we can use. So that is the measurements with which we understand each other. It is a common measurement. I define as the number 1 also. There is a border from which we can start to count, and we can start to count on each other, and we can start to compare. From that number 1 onwards, we also start to calculate the common timings between each other, the common communications, and so on. So there is that, it is the starting point also for all our measurements. Except the spatial references, we have also the time references, and we have the context references. Only as soon as we really know how these measurements are really in balance with each other, we really found a pattern that works. And this pattern is like this circle around the A. If I have a very good way as a number 1, as my size, as my measurements, how I describe things, how I measure them, how I describe them to someone else, or someone else describes it. If they are a common good, and we all understand the common good with the same size, it fits in all this scheme, and I found the pattern that fits this, not only within a stable space, but also in time frames and in a large context, after which are also values that are expanding beyond our vision as well. So then we found the pattern that we can use everywhere, and this pattern is defined as I. So this I is actually the right borderline between the wave of our understanding, from in between where we can have a good estimation and good measurements. If we can define it very well, this letter I has a very clear border where it is, and this border can be used also to measure time periods, so between one period and another period. So in between that it will also fit. And also the larger patterns where it will fit this. This is the letter I. This is the pattern you can use everywhere. That's part of the theory, and I will be able to use it to, and you can also use it to understand better why we use the letter A, how this way of thinking is with A, how this way of thinking is with I, and how we use them in words and so on. They are actually not so different in other languages. So actually, when we are in our common space, where we try to estimate the space in which we can define something. So in which borders does it really find? It's still an estimation. It's in between two borders. It's also in between two measurements in time. If we really have the pattern, we can use it everywhere. When I start from in trying to measure it as an estimation, that's not just A, but it is I also. It is I that decides what kind of definitions I use. We start from our starting point in I, starts with the letter A and ends with actually the letter I. In a way, it is a reference to this pattern that you can use everywhere. From A, I will use my starting point to all applications. And when I succeed, I also have the I. Then I have a pattern that is useful and everybody understands me because I have a description within a range that everybody can understand and everybody can apply to. I don't have it too wide, I don't have it too narrow. It's more or less usable in my space of references to communicate and to use as a general context. So while wants to define one, of course it uses this only with its own ability, while the I itself is the perfect application that can be used everywhere. So the range from A is actually an estimation from 0 to 1, while I is actually the rest factor until I can see the real border, the estimation with which to calculate all the patterns. The Y as well, we use that in English as well. It is already the estimation to where we will be able to measure and use the measurements and use measurements that work. So the letter is also, has also a place in the system. That's the place in the system. But I was going to go towards the letters and numbers. I already have the number 1 here. I have the letter A, which is from 0 to 1. And I have the letter E, which has a reference to 1. Although it has the number, in numbering, it has the number 9, but that's another option here. We will use it as with that reference of the number 1 as a measurement that we can use in the system. So I is the consciousness that we use, that we want to become aware, that we want to make everything objective, and in a way we define it as I know this thing and I can see this thing. In a way, the first measurement, this from 0 to 1, is this estimation, but it tries to reach something that is universal, as you can see that in the I sound there. Okay, let's now go and make the comparison. The comparison with what I want to show you the comparison to the Chinese idea of number 1. The Chinese script will always use this as a reference. The script itself is a kind of reference of a symbolized working field, and this working field to work with is actually an association, not as we do, to try to have as quickly as possible a very good placement in place and in space, but to have an as good as and as quickly as possible measurement in the time frame. So we have, you say, these 4 squares are like the 4 seasons. They have a balance, and we try to make a balance between all what is evolving, all the evolutions from all the things that we do should be in balance, and they should be in balance, and they have this balance in yin and yang, of course, like everything in the East. Also between the 4 seasons, that means when you do something, we will also have already in our mind, it has to lead to something that has a good transformation, that we can continue to keep that balance. So they always have that time frame. So this time frame is also about the measurements between a starting point and an end point and everything what is in between. So compared to our Western vision, we have the eye. We try to estimate it ourselves, and we are free to do so, and we're also free to make mistakes. The foundation of the Eastern philosophy is not open to mistakes. It's only open to make a good measurement in balance. So it focuses more on time and context than we do. And there you have already a kind of contextual time frame in which this measurement between the starting point and the end point, the 2 E's as you have here, are measured. That's the length in which the A for the first time, as a universal application in E. We have these 2 levels of understanding. A is my tryout, and E is what I know. That's what I know, which is correct, and I will use it, and I will have something to use. That's my in our vision, it's a choice. Here it is a balance. So it is a balance from this measurement of one of in the length, of course, from in the time frame, from the start to the finish, in this field of organization of a time frame. This philosophy, which I add to it, which is not officially given to it, as if that is the way how you have to understand one, because you can just count, but underlying, you will notice more and more if you accept this idea that I tell you, that this is all about balance in the 4 seasons. It will make even more sense when you accept this idea, how we build up words and symbols and the script in the Chinese script as with the foundation of this Confucian idea of balance and building up further from this balance and back towards this balance. All the letters will be explained in that way and can be explained on these 4 squares. And from within the time frame, you can have my counting, how I count it in it, will be framed within that region. Not within the region of space, but within the region of timings. I have E, my first application of all the things that we know are not things in space, in a stable space, but they are things in a time frame. That's why it's called E and not A. It's E. One is E. And I hope already this was something that you can remember. The reasons why I say this, it might not be clear yet, but you can remember them, and they have also a kind of spiritual, deeper lying meaning that can be taken to the next level that you can learn by adding more layers to it, layers that I will go to provide in the next couple of videos. Anyhow, I hope also that thanks to this video you could understand not just the Roman letter A better, but also the difference between A and I, and of course also the reason why and how the character of one or I is used, how it is used and why it is used, and how you can associate it. If you don't accept that at this point, it doesn't matter, but I hope already it gets you closer to the a deeper reality, interconnected reality than before. Anyhow, thanks for watching. The book that is about letters from different scripts, like from the Chinese, you can is the application of the word. So that's the second volume, which will also make associations as I will have, which I had today, but which I will also going to show you in the next couple of videos. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Bye bye.